ask you to. Okay, so we're recording, and I'm going to go to slideshow. And I think it's hiding here from the beginning. Okay, can you see that, folks?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm showing, what time we have here? 30 minutes on my watch. Okay. So we'll be done by 12 o'clock. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Florida Climate Week. My name is Ernie Shea, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. And we are going to be taking a close look at a new initiative that's come out of the Florida Climate Smart Agriculture Initiative, and it's known as the Healthy Farms, Healthy Bays Initiative. So we really want to thank you for joining this event. The whole Florida Climate Smart Agriculture Work Program has been co-sponsored and supported by the organization I work for, Solutions from the Land, and the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, UF-IFAS. And together we've been supporting a very robust group of leaders that have been looking into the future about what Florida agriculture is about, challenges that it's facing, and with a particular focus on climate change and the impacts that it's having on the state's #1 industry. So we'll go through the program today, and I've got a few introductory slides I'm going to be providing some setup information for, and then we're going to be joined by Ed Childs, who is the co-chair of Healthy Farms, Healthy Bays. Ed is also a farmer, a restaurateur, and been very active with the aquaculture industry in the state for many years. We also have Abby Whitehead with us. Abby is an aquatic stakeholder. Her family she'll tell you more about this, I'm sure, very much tied to the bivalve industry and the aquatic resources that we've been talking about in this initiative. And she's also a FFA student and a high school senior on her way to graduating with an AA degree, I just learned. And then third and last up will be Laura Ghost. Laura is representing our land steward partners. So this is an initiative that brings aquatic stakeholders and terrestrial farmers together into the conversation about the future of Florida agriculture. I want to also, as at the very beginning here, give a great shout out to Volo Foundation. Volo Foundation is a private family foundation who has been supporting our work for a number of years. Their mission is focused on accelerating responses to climate change, and they are supporting science-based climate solutions through education and also a focus on improving health. So this entire initiative would not have been possible without the support from Volo Foundation. I want to thank David and Thais Vogel for their support. So just a quick word about Florida Climate Smart Ag, if you're not familiar, and maybe many of you aren't if you haven't seen one of our previous webinars, but it is a multi-stakeholder cross-boundary collaboration that has been around for now about 6 years. And we are focused on identifying and implementing climate smart agriculture solutions that not just help farms be sustainable and ranches and forest lands, but helps them concurrently deliver ecosystem services, such as filtering and storing water, enhancing biodiversity, sequestering carbon, which is a major climate solution. And these ecosystem services collectively improve quality of life. This initiative is led by visionary farmer, rancher, forest lien owners and their partners. And our role has been simply to help them explore the challenges that they're facing and develop action plans to move forward. As they've gone through their work, they've realized that the intersection between agriculture and environmental issues is an extremely important focal point, and that there are a symbiotic relationship between healthy farms and healthy bays. So that led us to develop a special initiative where we intentionally started a conversation between upland farmers and ranchers and silviculture operators with downstream aquaculture stakeholders and anglers, because we all share the same environment. We all are tied together by the health of the Suwannee River. And we thought that instead of having separate conversations, if we brought these communities of interest together into a conversation about the challenges they're facing and the future ahead of them, that we might get some interesting outcomes and results. And we're going to be talking about that as we go forward today. Most recently, we've been dealing with climate change through major storm events. And this slide takes us back about a year when Hurricane Idalia moved up through the Gulf, crossed into the Big Bend area of Florida, and had a major devastating impact on the state's economy, but in particular, Florida agriculture. And it was another wake-up call to the group that's leading Florida Climate Smart Agriculture, that the policies, the practices, the programs of the past are not adequate to meet the challenges that we're now facing today. So climate change is a huge threat multiplier to the future of agriculture. And if agriculture is disrupted, we're not going to get these ecosystem services and quality of life outcomes that we believe we can deliver with sustainably managed farming operations. So this team, we're not going to have time to get into the whole report today, but they coalesced and they came together around a number of common values and unifying factors, we call them. And the first is that the biggest threat to the future of the Suwannee River Basin and all of the industries that are related to it and the people that live there is urbanization and overdevelopment. And without managed growth, the ability of the agricultural landscapes to deliver these ecosystem solutions throughout the watershed are going to be compromised. They also recognized that agriculture was actually a preferred land use, and that if agriculture was not successful, likely we would be seeing land transfers and more development that would be creating more and more challenges to the Suwannee River Basin. They also recognized that both communities, the aquaculture communities and the agriculture communities, had a shared commitment to be good stewards of the earth and to be paying attention to nature-based solutions that we can scale up by working together. They certainly have shared family values. There are multiple generations of farming operations, and leaders have been involved in this project, and they are looking to the future. This is a conversation and a project about maintaining the viability of successful agriculture and aquaculture operations for generations to come. And they also coalesced around the fact that we have to stop just talking about problems. We need real solutions and real actions. So after 2 years worth of work of exploring the current state of the watershed, the challenges that they're facing, they ended up producing a roadmap that is an action plan. It's a call to action for changes that are needed in land use practices, changes in research, changes in education and policy that will enable agriculture to remain viable, which means it has to remain profitable. And if it is viable and profitable, we can manage the land to deliver not just nutritious food, but all of the ecosystem services that can come from well-managed farms, ranches, and forests. So they culminated with 2 priority goals. And the first is they're calling for accelerated best management practice, research and implementation. And for those of you that are not familiar with these conservation practices, they are the practices that a farmer would use, such as not tilling the ground using no-till or planting cover crops or putting buffer strips in. There's a whole suite of conservation systems and practices that can be applied on the ground that helps the farm or the ranch or the forest be productive and deliver these ecosystem services. So they have a big shout out to scale them up. And then they said concurrently, we need a comprehensive agriculture, aquaculture, a community engagement and education program so that more and more people can come on board and be part of the conversation and participate in solutions. So that is a very fast overview setup for the conversation that we're going to have with Ed and Abby and Laura going forward here. And each of these individuals were on the leadership team that produced this report. And we're so thankful that you have your time available today to be with us, to be part of the conversation for Florida Climate Week. So I'm going to begin just with a high-cut opening question to each of you. And that is that, why did you become involved in this? You have so many other things you could be doing. Why was this important to you? Ed, how would you respond to that? And Ed, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ernie. And I want to thank the Volo Foundation for giving us the resources to get this conversation going and to start moving because time is short. I think we all realize that in what we're seeing year after year, and there is much to do. And this conversation is a critically important one to begin that effort and to make the changes that we need to make so that we can continue the history and the heritage of the Swanee River Basin and that area. I'm just so delighted to see Abby here today, and what a great representative of that she is. How many generations her families have been in the business. I grew up on a place called Anna Maria Island in the summertime, and I'm from Polk County, Florida, and I've been on the coast in Anna Maria for 45 years, running 3 restaurants right on the edge of the largest Gulf in the world, and I have seen the effects, and I have seen the acceleration of things that have to do with climate change. What keeps me up at night with 3 waterfront restaurants has been water quality, with harmful algal blooms, with cyanobacterias, with the things that we've experienced too often and that we all know about. And I started working in that field 30 years ago because I was really worried that it could come and what it could do to the economy of our area and to the businesses that I'd worked on. And those are all the issues that are in the Swanee River Basin. It's what's going on in our estuaries. It's how important those estuaries are for biodiversity, for the fresh from Florida seafood, from the lifestyles that we all want to live, for being able to put high quality local seafood on the plate so that we have good protein to eat. This comes at a time when 90+% of the seafood that we eat in this country is imported. And 50% of that is aquaculture. And yet we're doing only 1% in the United States of that aquaculture. We need to be promoting aquaculture. We need to be developing the science and the benefits of aquaculture. And that's part of what this program is going to be about. That's what we're doing down in our region in the Tampa Bay, Sarasota Bay, and Charlotte Harbor area. That's what we're doing with the Gulf Shelf Institute initiative to get the science to show that these biological mitigation strategies for promoting coastal resiliency, forage fish habitat, seagrass that is so critical to manatees. And so, but what happens in the uplands is all part of what happens on the coast and vice versa. We all want this because that again is the heritage. The farmers don't want to see us lose these estuaries, and getting the best practices models put in so that we can take care of water, that we don't have water flooding in areas because of storms, because there's been so much development, that what leaches out of those farming areas we can use best practices to try to change things where we don't get as much nutrient inflow. So those are the things that I care about and I'm concerned about. And what brought me here is naked self-interest, a love of the coast, caring about the business that was, provide me an opportunity to raise a family. And I think first and foremost for all of us, it's our obligation to future generations. So it's about my heart, it's about my business, it's about my grandson.
Thank you, Ed. Well said. Abby is switching classes. Ed mentioned she's a high school student, so she's moving rooms right now. So Laura, we're going to go to you. What did you get involved in this project? What was of interest to you?
The main reason I got involved is because I like to eat good food and I like to know where it comes from and to feel like it's safe for me to feed my family. And that's something that's critically important to me. I've always had a heart for education and especially agricultural education. I actually founded a nonprofit several years ago to teach kids where food comes from and how to prepare it. That's something that's just really near and dear to me. I have a 10-year-old and I desperately want her to grow up with a sense of security in, what she's nourishing her body with and her future family. And my Anne Marie is particularly interested in animals. And I think that nobody knows that farmers care about wildlife. I feel like it's a misnomer that farmers are users and not givers. And so part of the reason that it's important for me to be involved is to be an advocate for the folks that are providing our food, but that are also taking care of the earth while trying their very hardest to be productive and have a sustainable operation while they're doing that. I just feel like so often the producers get a bad rap, and that's not at all the case. They literally feed their families with the fruits of their labor, and also that's how they make their living. And so that's something that oftentimes goes undiscussed, and that's important to me. I feel like we're all called to tend the planet, right? That we've been gifted, and that's something from the very beginning of time that was important, and that's something that's important to me is to maintain the livelihood that those in my area enjoy and work so hard to preserve for themselves and their families in order to take care of the rest of us, and also to be an advocate for those farmers, along with being a proponent of agricultural education, not in the high school sense, but in the broad societal sense that people really understand about where the food comes from and how important that is. And let's just say it's a political year, right? This is an issue of national security, in my opinion. And so I think it's critically important that we do everything we can to sustain American agriculture, and such a huge industry here in Florida, and something that we've all grown to love, but something that I would say we probably also take for granted here. So thanks for the opportunity for me to be involved. It's really an honor.
Well, both Laura and Ed, you've articulated a great example of shared core values. So this is what this project is really grounded in. So let's go now to Abby, who I think has changed classes. Abby, you're a high school student. You're an FFA member. You could be doing so many other things. Why did you get involved in this conversation about healthy farms and healthy bays?
Because this is the industry that built me into who I am. I owe everything that I am today to being able to grow up in the industry. I mean, I have been working with aquaculture and being surrounded by the different parts of agriculture my entire life. You find pictures of me when I was 2 out there helping in the crab shed, because it has made me into who I am today. My papa always said that a happy customer is a returning customer. And so now I make it my personal goal to do the very best I can in whatever job I'm doing, because I want to have something that would make him proud and something that I would enjoy personally if I was the one in the consumer position. So when I found out about this initiative and being able to learn about the other parts of the industry and being able to just connect with people both on the land and water side, it was extremely exciting, because a lot of times people don't realize how much we do have in common. I mean, sure, we have our differences, but there's differences in just the aquaculture sector alone. I mean, what I do isn't the same as like Mr. Tim Solano, for example. He eats clams, we crab. There's big differences there, but we're both in aquaculture. Same thing goes with anybody else who's farming. Sure, land farming is a little bit different, but it's still a part of agriculture, and we still face the same struggles, and we still face a lot of similar things. For example, natural disasters. Natural disasters are extremely pricey in recovery, and it hurts our businesses a lot. But we find a way to recover. We also have the same core value of trying to provide a high quality product for our consumers. We don't want to put something on the table that we wouldn't want to eat ourselves. My papa, every time somebody goes over to the craft shed, he has to basically force them to take all the stuff he's given them, because he'll give them anything he has. Him and Mr. Jack Cook work very close. I call Mr. Jack my bonus grandpa, because they became best friends and they refuse to pay each other. They just trade back and forth. And so looking at their relationship, they're from different sides of the industry. I realized that anybody in the industry can have that type of relationship. So I hope to bring that into the initiative, since that was one of the main goals. I also loved it because I love advocating for the industry. If you haven't noticed, I really like to talk. So I want to be able to use my voice for a purpose. God gave me a gift to be able to public speak, and I want to put it towards something useful. I have so many hours in a day that if I wasn't doing stuff like this, I would just be sitting around. The majority of my generation loves to just sit and type away on their phones. And it's sad because there's so much we could be doing in that time to be productive. I mean, if you look around, the average high schooler only spends 8 hours a day at school. What about the rest of their day? Okay, save some time for homework, but even with that, you have so many hours that you could be putting to good use. So I wanted to do my very best to use my time to the best way I possibly could. So through things like this, college, so that I can in the future become a better advocate, and for things like Fair Ambassador at Suwannee River Fair.
So what a wonderful example of unbridled passion and cross-boundary collaboration. This is not common. And I think that's the hallmark of what this Healthy Farms, Healthy Days initiative is about. We brought diverse communities of interest together. And instead of pointing the fingers at each other in terms of who's causing what part of the problem, they said, we're all in this together. And if we can team up and focus on helping the Suwannee be as productive and as healthy as possible, it's going to benefit the farming industry, the forestry industry, the aquaculture industry. So this uncommon collaboration is, again, one of the hallmarks of this project. We've got about 10 minutes left. Let me just keep moving along with a couple of open-ended questions. Ed, the action plan calls for a big, comprehensive agriculture, aquaculture, community engagement education program. What might that look like? What are the couple of elements that you hope take off with that? And Ed, you're on mute.
I think it goes to what I talked about when, the opening remarks of understanding the science of what's going on and developing the science that is so important around best practices, around how we can both flourish, because we are both so important. And it's also about having that conversation of sitting around the table together and talking about the mutual concerns that we have about being able to pass our businesses along to the next generation, about making sure that aquaculture is agriculture, make no mistake about it, that it is viable and that ag is viable, because we don't want to see ag get displaced by development. I don't think the estuaries can handle that. I don't think we can process the water. I think it's the battle that we have with nutrient loading and is an ongoing battle, and how we develop best practices and how we implement those together, how we're using the right kind of fertilizers and the right kind of where we can do no-till where it makes sense, and where we can do cover crops that are so essential, how we store more carbon, how we percolate more water into the aquifers, how we stop more nutrients from running off into the coast. And, because it's not just what happens in the uplands of the Suwannee River Basin. I'm sitting here today in my cabin in Montana, and I'm about 9 miles on the east side of the Continental Divide. And it's everything from there that comes down and runs down into the Mississippi River that we have to deal with, and comes down into the Gulf of Mexico. So those are things that we can't control as well as we control what happens in our own area. And I think it's just critical that we do that. Fertilizer has become a lot more expensive. And if we can show farmers, and we can, because I do farm. I farm 26 miles inland from where my restaurants are on the coast in Anna Maria Island in Longboat Key. And I know that what happens out there at the Gamble Creek farm, and I sit right on Gamble Creek, and what we do with our farm, and we're all organic, we're doing regenerative, and we're doing vermiculture and polycultures and the microbial things to try to be a model there to how we can farm in a way that is sustainable, that is good for the soil, that is good for everything from the top down and from the top up. So it's good for the environment. It's good for our health. It gets back to more biological farming, and we need to do more biological farming. We need to do less chemical farming, because that's where the change came, I believe, after World War II and everything, and the big crops and the monocrops and all of that, and growing for shelf life and color. We need to be growing for nutrients.
Yep. And I think that segue to being more circular and more diverse is a big part of this whole conversation. We've got about 5 minutes left. Ed, thank you for that great overview. Laura and Abby, a question for both of you. Laura, your day job, you're the executive director of the Florida Peanut Federation. Are the farmers going to react this differently when they see themselves as part of the solution, as a part of the problem?
Certainly. People get a lot further with encouragement, right? And I think that's true of all. The BMP implementation is really a key here. So the research is continuously being done. The implementation in a realistic way is something that's certainly very important. And to feel a partnership rather than an attack is crucial. And so that's where we are, and we're very grateful for that. I'd like to say that particularly farmers are working to be as sustainable as possible, and that includes with their financial matters, right, in order to keep their production alive, in order to feed us and the rest of the world. So they're not wasting any money on any of those expensive fertilizers. And every time there's an opportunity to try something new that research has led for a benefit to the environment, to the crop, to the sustainability of the production, then they absolutely jump on that straight away. And that's something that we support. All of the farmers that are involved in my organization are very diverse, extraordinarily diverse. And the year after they grow peanuts on a field, that field lays out for a few years for rotation. So yes, it's producing beef cattle, but it's also serving as carbon sequestrant and a water recharge site, and also lending to the healthy biodiversity of that field for the future. So that's an important thing to recognize, and part of that education that we were talking about. So not only are we educating standard consumers, but also policymakers, because those are some of the most critical folks that we need to reach with our message.
Absolutely. And Abby, you've got your whole career and life ahead of you here. How can we take your passion for the future of the watershed, the estuaries, across your colleagues to motivate other young leaders to become involved? Any thoughts there?
Absolutely. So like you were saying before, it's sometimes hard to get the youth involved because most of them just want to lay back and relax, and I can't really blame them. But the thing is that if we can make education exciting about the industry, show all of the different parts of the industry, then we can get my generation involved in it and excited. Because here's the thing, we spend so much time online that if you're going to reach my generation, you have to take some sort of measures to either get them out there and show them it can be fun and exciting, or to promote it on social media. I know personally, I have a TikTok page and an Instagram where I talk about the FFA and agriculture. And on there, I have 12.7 thousand people who see my videos. And I have ended up coaching kids all across the country for different FFA things and agricultural things, because they found me through that page. Even though it seems like it's just a bunch of silly videos, it has had an impact and it's helped me to reach other people. And it helped me to start a podcast where I can talk about the agriculture industry. And another thing about it too is having these educational field trips. For example, Miss Laura, she does the Peanut Federation field trips, and I personally went on it in 9th grade, and it was so much fun to go out there and see the combine, see the fields, learn about the operations, and see what they do out there at that IFAS center. Another thing too is like Dr. Allen. Dr. Allen, I remember this so vividly, even though it was 7 years ago, brought my 4th grade class out to C4 Ski, and we went out on a field trip and got to learn about the ecosystem in Cedar Key. We got to drag a net and have a touch tank to learn about the different species. We got to learn about the food chain there and the food web. And those things stick with us. My class still talks about that today, and that has been 7 years ago. So making it exciting and making people realize that agriculture isn't just dirt. There's stuff to do. It's exciting, it's enjoyable, and just igniting that passion inside of them is crucial, whether it's through social media or live interaction.
Great. Well, folks, as we close out here, I want to direct you to our website. And if I can get that up quickly here, there you go. The website is where you can go to get a copy of the report, solutionsontheland.org, and go to the Florida Climate Smart Agriculture tab webpage, and you'll find a copy of this report that they put together. So thank you again, folks, for your leadership, for your time, for your passion. I think we've got a very bright future ahead. A lot of times people get so focused on the problems that it comes across as doom and gloom, but your vision of the future is one of success and collaboration and partnerships and improved quality of life. So thank you for your leadership, for your service. Thank you to Volo Foundation for making this work possible. The investment that they made in this is going to pay dividends many, many times over through the positive outcomes that come out of your work. So thank you all for joining this event for Florida Climate Week. Stay involved, stay engaged, follow us on social media, and you'll be learning more about this project because it's much more than just a report. It's a call to action, and we're already submitting major grant proposals, including a $25 million grant proposal for BMP implementation that was submitted to the United States Department of Agriculture last month. So thank you all for your time and have a great week.
Thank you.